system officially launched.
As you know, we are supposed to be on recess, and the media has been talking about us and the recess. But this is a very important function, very important meeting. We are always very happy to meet with the youth and to meet with the young people that are developing and transforming our country. As a government, we are very committed to being able to move things forward.
However, senators expected CS Fred Matiang'i to appear before the House to explain the arrest of 3 senators. Matiang'i, alongside Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai, are expected to appear before the Senate's National Security Committee on Wednesday to address the arrest of the 3 senators.
Further evidence has been adduced before this House, confirming that the IG was at a public function, that the minister was somewhere launching a Boda Boda Sacco Association or something of that kind. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we are calling upon you to further give direction in furtherance of Senator James Orengo's point on what will be done to this particular officer who misled a committee of this House.
Nanok Lavern, TV 47.
All right, now the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, has urged Boda Boda operators in the country to support government's efforts in the fight against female genital mutilation. Matiang'i says the wide network that Boda Boda riders enjoy can be utilized to bring a culprits abating FGM to book, as Mwangi Minor reports.
Speaking at a meeting with Boda Boda chairmen from all the 47 counties here in Nairobi, CS Matiang'i said the riders are an integral part in the fight against female genital mutilation. Matiang'i alludes to the fact that the riders have a huge network and therefore a high possibility of knowing where these illegal activities are taking place.
Let us join the government's effort against female genital mutilation. Let us join the government's effort against violence against our young girls. Let it be known that if our young girls are carried by Boda Bodas to school, or as they walk to school, the Boda Boda riders who are riding around them are their foremost watchmen and watchwomen.
For a long time, Boda Boda riders have been blamed for indiscipline and abetting crimes, but Matiang'i says Boda Boda organizations are restoring sanity in the sector. He has requested them to protect young girls in their areas of operations.
The Boda Boda Association of Kenya will become now the new member of our policing effort to police our communities so that our girls are safe when they go to school and when they go back home.
Matiang'i spoke during the unveiling of the Boda Boda Integrated Management Information System.
I want, Bona Chairman, to encourage you that we work together to ensure that this data of your members is fully secured so that nobody can interfere with that data.
We want to identify ourselves with the government. We don't want to be called criminals when someone does a mistake somewhere. One person cannot destroy the image of our over 1.3 million riders in this country.
Meanwhile, chaos erupted at the function when a section of Boda Boda leaders demanded to know why they were left out in the meeting. 2 factions of the Boda Boda Association of Kenya have been embroiled in a leadership tussle. The Boda Boda Information Management System is geared up to restoring order and sanity in the Boda Boda sector, especially in tracking crimes committed using Boda Bodas. Now it is a matter of wait and see to see how successful the information management system will be. Mwangi Minor, TV 47 from KICD in Nairobi.
And for Kenya's National Executive Council now wants 3 legislatures expelled, pending the General Council meeting, which will approve the resolutions. The council resolved to expel Tongaren, a Member of Parliament Cecilia Simiyu, Kandui's Wafula Wamunyinyi, and nominated MCA Cynthia Mutere, as Mumbi Chege now reports.
According to Ford Party leader Moses Wetangula, the move is meant to expel any rebels that have continued to openly defy the leadership of Ford Party. The 3 were expelled from the party in a resolution by the party's governing council.
Discipline remains the key and cardinal rule in any engagement. We have seen other parties in the country enforcing rules of discipline for better order, better management, of their parties. Ford Kenya will be no exception.
Tongaren Member of Parliament Aseli Simiyu has however dismissed the party's decision, terming it as a joke. The party has accused the three of sabotaging its activities. They were among party members who led the party's coup that ousted party leader Moses Wetangula a few weeks ago.
Going forward, therefore, as Dr. Chris has informed you, our lawyer will take the necessary steps together with the Secretariat to urgently inform the Office of the Registrar of the decision taken to expel the errand members. Steps will be taken to remove them from the register of members of Ford Kenya Party.
The party's interim Secretary General Chris Wamalwa warned the party members to desist from engaging with the expelled members on any matters concerning the party.
We hereby assure our members and supporters that the Simba Party is intact and stronger than ever before. We caution them never to interact with the trio on Ford Kenya party matters. As you are aware, we had obtained conservatory orders, and we have members purported to transact business on behalf of the party outside there.
The High Court is yet to make a ruling on who are the legitimate party officials. Mumbichege, TV47.
Thanks, Mobi, for that. Now, Rwanda's two largest markets, Nyabugogo Market and the Nyarugenge City Market, have been put on a one-week lockdown effective yesterday, August the 17th, as the government seeks to control a sudden spike in new infections in Kigali, as Diana Iriza has the report.
Now here we are at the Nyarugenge market. As you can see, there's a total lockdown in this market. Now this decision comes after the government of Rwanda noticed that 253 people that were tested positive for COVID-19 on Friday came from these two markets, Nyarugenge market and Nyabugogo market. Of these, Kigali alone accounts for 219 cases. In a later dated August 16th, the city of Kigali said that those who operate in this market, especially those who sell perishables, will be given time to remove their stock and relocate to another market. It also continued to say that there is a poor attitude towards following the simple guidelines requiring one to frequently wash their hands, wear a mask and observe social distance.
These are big markets in the city of Kigali. If I say they are big markets, it means there is a very big number of people who come to sell their goods. There is a very big number of people who come to buy those things in these markets. So I don't think there is any other reason apart from them being big markets, and in places where there is a big number of people. In most cases, people do not take necessary preventive measures. So the people are told to put on face masks, but some of them don't put them. Even those who have put them, when they want to communicate to each other, they have a tendency to do like this. When they do this, in case someone is infected, it's very easy for the virus to go out.
The Rwanda National Police say that the measures of protecting oneself from COVID-19 should be different now than it was during the lockdown due to the influx of people. It also continued to say that almost all businesses are open. There are local leaders, volunteers, and other security personnel. There is a need to sit down and revise how these guidelines can be enforced collectively. I wasn't expecting the market lockdown, but due to the positive cases found in the nearest hotel, we were prepared to have the market closed. We have been following preventive measures. We wash our hands regularly. However, the markets are always crowded by all sorts of people. Of course, we are going to be affected by the closing of these markets. I can only afford to eat when I come to work in this market. I am also going to be affected because I have children to raise. I have been highly affected by the closure of the market because I sell perishable goods. We were told many positive cases have been found in those areas, but honestly, we were not told when exactly the markets would be closed.
And from Rwanda, it's now time that we cross over to the newspapers. It's important that we take a look at them in regards to what it is that has been captured. Like we say, we have the Daily Nation, we have the Standard newspaper, and we have the People Daily with me this morning. So I'll try and open them up as we take a look at what exactly it is that has been captured on the same. Yes, and let's take ourselves through this process. And here we are. We have the Daily Nation right here on the front page. Petition of judges' lawyer wants judges installed without Uhuru's nod. Not before I get to introduce Aloys Lavern, who's a youth leader, and he will be taking us through what he thinks about the newspapers. So we'll be doing the newspaper review with Aloys. Aloys, you there? Good morning.
Good morning to you, Linda.
Good to have you.
Good to be here.
Ready, set for the day?
Yes, ready, set for the day.
All right, some hot topics. Yeah, some hot topics today, and of course hard issues that have found themselves on the newspaper, found way on the newspapers or on the headlines. And I'd love to hear a youthful perspective on the same equally, even as, yes, we just weigh in on what exactly is there. So I have the Daily Nation with me. The front page says, of course, gives us the list of the COVID-19 cases that we've had and the sting that it comes along with. Remember, today is COVID-19 360, so we'll be discussing more of issues to do with COVID-19. So COVID-19 sting, at least 16 health workers have died of COVID-19, captured on page 6. Worried about this is something that we'll be discussing later on. We'll be having a doctor and a lawyer on board, and I think I don't need to have a lawyer discuss on that. Let's cross over to this one. Petition on judges' lawyer wants judges installed without Uhuru's nod. This one has been captured on the Daily Nation. That is the back page, and we know very well that we've had a push and pull between the judiciary and of course the executive, and this continues to culminate. So this proposal by the lawyer says that, you know, judges are to be installed without President Uhuru Kenyatta's nod, because, well, the president has taken so much of his sweet time. That means then he might not be able to, you know, have that constitutional right again to proceed and judge. Remember, there's been a push and pull as to whether, of course, they should be fronted or not, based on the argument of the judiciary calling upon the government to give it a nod, but President Uhuru Kenyatta failed to give the nod on these 41 judges, arguing that they had issues to do with matters credibility. Aloys, if you can weigh in on the same. This, in a huge way, has been looked at as a hindrance to dealing with, corrupt cases right here in the country, and a hindrance to ensuring that justice is felt by the people.
No, I couldn't agree more with the thinking of the lawyer. I mean, the judiciary is a separate arm of government, and therefore I think it also needs to have its independence, especially when it comes to the selection of judges. So if you look at the situation that we are in now, where the judiciary seems to be at loggerheads with the executive, then it hinders service delivery to the common man by having enough judges to handle a huge backlog of cases that are actually there. So for me, this would be the move and the direction that we need to take, especially when we have a brilliant new constitution that basically champions separation of powers and the independence of government bodies. So for me, it's about time that happens.
Well, the president has a say in a way in declaring or having these judges nominated or appointed, and in what he cites as, figures that have been put on board and have questionable, integrity. So should we proceed and say, let's have them on board if the president feels like there needs to be more investigations or there needs to be more deliberation before they are appointed?
I think judges are public officials, and it's very hard to comment on that, because none of these nominees, these questionable characters that we're talking about, or these questionable acts that they've committed, have not been shown to us as the general public. So I think what needs to change, for example, is that whenever the judiciary, first of all, should have its independence and should be able to appoint its own judges, but also this selection process should be very open to us as the public, where we actually scrutinize these individuals' characters, as opposed to simply being told that is questionable, their questionable character, and so forth.
All right. Well, okay. Well, aside from that, we cross over to a different story. And day of terror, high drama, the gangland-style arrest and the ejection of Nairobi of 3 senators opposed to the government-backed proposal on revenue sharing was an open means to a secret end to bar them from attending a special house sitting and ensure that the preferred formula is adopted. But the plan flopped after the leaders outsmarted the government. That is captured on page 4 and 5. This in regards to the debate on the revenue allocation that has backburdened after arrest of 3 senators, or that was backburdened after the arrest of 3 senators. So here we are again, the Senate stalemate, or the revenue sharing stalemate that is ongoing. What do you make of yesterday's drama? What do you make of what Kenyans have been treated to? And what are the likelihoods that this 12-member committee is going to resolve what it is that has been brought on board, or what it is that they've not been able to solve after a series of sittings?
First of all, yesterday, the drama that we saw yesterday, especially the arrest of the 3 senators, takes us back almost 20 years in terms of being a democracy. I don't think we need to arrest anyone for us to be able to pass, for example, a formula. I think we're at the point in democracy where we are supposed to be able to lobby, speak to these senators. I believe they're not just, I would like to believe that it's not the individual gains that they're looking at, but rather what the people on the ground want and what the people sent them to Senate to do. I personally don't believe that any county should lose at the expense of another one. I think if we're looking at revenue sharing, then we can say, okay, fine, these counties gain more, but none of the counties is actually losing from the last allocation that we got, because we can actually see in some counties that this going to actual good use. The funds going to actual good use. But in terms of arresting senators for us to get to pass maybe a certain bill that we want to pass, or for the sake of the formula to pass, then I think this is highly uncalled for and a wake-up call. It makes me, as a young leader, be very afraid to even get into parliament, for example, or to be able to speak my voice, that I have to toe the line or else I'll be arrested. I don't think this is the direction that we need to take as a government and as a nation. But all I would wish for is that counties get out of this stalemate. So again, I ask that, because in Kenya we know that leaders have owners. So I would say I would like the owners come out, sit down, and clearly put this matter to rest. I think Kenyans should not suffer at the expense of a few individuals wanting to benefit themselves.
All right, and page 4 and 5 still speaks of the same. And one of the stories that has been captured says, "End in sight for revenue impasse as team formed to seek a way out." So, well, we can only wait to see whether indeed it will be end in sight and whether we're going to get answers of the same. I don't know whether you've seen the story on Matters Ford Kenya. Ford Kenya, one of the oldest, or the country's oldest parties, upon coming in of multipartyism, is still grappling with leadership issues. And, wake up today, one of the leaders has been rooted out by the NEC or the NEC. Before you notice, okay, well, the leader is not out. Moses Wetangula is still, yes, the boss. And then before you know it, again, another party leader crops up, another secretary general crops up, the secretary general again is rooted out, and that is exactly what played out yesterday as the likes of Eseli Simiyu were rooted out by the NEC. And Eseli Simiyu says the expulsion is laughable because it involves issues that are currently before the courts. So they are being accused of trying to come up with a core, which again, like he says, is something that has been ongoing for the longest. The accusations have been there. So what does it speak about this party? What does it speak about the formation of parties and, the constitutions of different parties and the roots of parties, as a country? Was it the right move to proceed and get multipartyism, or maybe we should have stayed at that level of single party?
No, I think what we're seeing in Fort Kenya is the beauty of democracy, you know. But also, if you look at Fort Kenya, this is normal for Fort Kenya. If you look at the history of Fort Kenya, with the likes of Raila Odinga edging out Kijana Wamalwa, I mean, the late Soita Shitanda, it's always been marred by party, I'd like to call it party democracy or fight for power. But also one thing that it exposes is that we don't have proper structures in our political parties in Kenya. And I think for as long as we don't have the right structures, then we should expect to see more of this, especially from Fort Kenya.
Well, okay. Well, like you said, we can only wait and see what will happen. They have of late treated us to a lot of issues in regards to, party formation, party, credibility, and party existence for that matter. So Kenya protests to Ethiopia overscribe. Well, this is also in regards to the arrest of Yasin Juma. So Kenya has once again demanded the release of journalist Yasin Juma, who was arrested in Ethiopia last month, and but who the court ordered freed, but such has not been the case. In a letter to the Ethiopian Foreign Ministry, Nairobi decried the continued detention of Mr. Juma, who contracted COVID-19 in prison last week, as a violation of his right to justice. And this is a conversation we've had for the longest of time, honestly. And we keep seeing our journalists going out there, and most of the Kenyans going out abroad and rotting in jail abroad. I mean, what really could be informing, first of all, this defiance by Ethiopia, the fact that they've kept Yasin for the longest of time right now, amid that declaration of the courts or by the courts?
And I think Ethiopia has always been one of the hostile countries, especially against journalists. So it comes to no surprise that Kenyan journalist has been detained and that they are being very difficult about the situation. But I believe in the same way that in Kenya we often extend a hand and allow other nationalities to go and be tried in their different countries. Then I think Ethiopia needs to reciprocate the same, but nonetheless, no journalist should ever have to pay the price for doing their job. So it's highly unfortunate, and we hope for his release soon. And indeed, we wish that he gets better from the COVID infection that is surviving.
All right, before we proceed with what is captured on the Daily Nation, let's a bit cross over to the front page of the Standard newspaper and see what has been captured. More or less the same story is a key, the Senate under siege. And this is something that we've discussed. As you can rightfully see, the members that have been set to address these as we wait to see whether indeed well, of course, these are the members of the Senate, and the utterances they all made yesterday in regards to trying to find a truce of this, and things continue to fall apart, as has been captured right here. And I think we've spoken about this. This is extensively captured on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. And a different story altogether. We are fighting for survival, not profits. This is according to Equity's boss, and he says renowned banker, that is James Mwangi, warns the country is facing an existential crisis, and priority for public and private institutions should be to save lives and not make money. Just how genuine is that? But anyway, I think one would say that we agree on this saying that, most of the sectors have been hit hard with matters COVID-19. It has rendered us to that point whereby, in as much as there would be that need, quest and urge to proceed and make profits, reality is that this is not happening. Hence, the most important thing should be about taking care of our lives. And that has been captured right there on the front page, and also the Financial Standard beat. And top 10 African ideas for tackling COVID-19. This also in regards to some technology, and expounded on page 3, I think, of the Standard newspaper, just trying to paint a picture of how best, as Africans, we've been able to deal with COVID-19. Of course, the likes of or stuff like lemon being very expensive, as it has been said that, when you take lots of lemon, you are likely to be safe, or maybe you're likely to deal with COVID-19. 10 nil. State plans that could kill Camry. And that is a story that is expounded, and I think we'll be expounding some more on the same on the next segment where we talk matters COVID 360. But also on this talk, Cargo Defense came to oversupply of 300 million free masks. Yesterday, CS for Matters Health appearing before the Health Committee just to, expound some more on what exactly has happened with the COVID-19 funds. And this is a conversation that we've had for the longest of time. He declares that they have only received probably 15% of what has been donated. What do you make of this and these talks of allegations within, or talks of corruption within the health sector on matters COVID-19?
I saw the CS, defending himself and pretty much saying that they can account for, every last dime that has been given so far to the ministry, and even going ahead on a Facebook post to thank one of the journalists who did an expose recently on COVID millionaires and how people have benefited of cancer and the likes. Right now is not the time for us to politicize, but more so for anyone to be looking at their own stomachs, for lack of a better word, when it comes to battling COVID-19. And I think as much as we're raising awareness, we also should try not to blast it out there that you can actually make money off COVID, because I believe sensationalize making money off COVID. But I think all we need to do as Kenyans is try and push the relevant authorities such as the EACC and the police to look into the matter of the COVID funds. But what my message to the CS is that try as much as possible to put your house in order so that we're able to combat this disease, rather than every now and then having to deal with the drama around COVID and how people are made money.
Okay, and away on that, or from that, of course, something that we'll be discussing later on. Page 10 and 11 has a couple of stories that have been captured. I'll pick at least two. One, Ruto takes break from city to look after cows. Well, so much activity is playing in the country, but yes, like they say, he's out there in the village, looking at stuff or taking care of his cattle and a couple of other things here and there. The politics of the nation cannot be spoken about or cannot be debated on without mentioning the name of the DP. The latest argument is that, yes, his side, that is Tanga Tanga, is trying to sabotage the achievement of what would be, getting a truce on the stalemate that is there on revenue allocation, and also talks of how much more, there is the talk of the deep state. What do you make of the DP and, the kind of silence sometimes that he tries to portray, and then later on comes out and drops something, disappears, drops something, disappears? What do you make of his strategy on politics 2022?
No, I think for once I'd agree with the DP strategy, because one of the things that makes you very popular in politics is by being rare, so that people crave for you. I think we had seen too much of the DP. Politics had literally become about the DP. He had sold his ambitions and his agendas to us too early, and I think Kenyans were starting to get tired of hearing about the DP and 2022 politics. But this is what I'll say on the matter. No one, and not even the DP himself, is entitled to be president of Kenya. And for me, we need to start looking at it from that angle. And something else is that the DP also is not the only politician who is working with God. So for me, I think all leaders, including the deputy president and the president, need to be focusing on service delivery to Kenyans, especially right now when we're dealing with a pandemic. The idea should be to serve Kenyans. I mean, we can start politics next year. I'd be very happy to start listening to different politicians selling their different policies to us from next year. But I think for now, and as long as we're dealing with a pandemic, and I think the focus should be on dealing with the pandemic and bettering the lives of Kenyans.
Okay, well, away from that, board teachers to get pay as 15 billion has been released. I think this is long overdue, and the excitement that is there. But I'd also love to hear your take on how the events of education are taking shape in the country. The introduction of this system where teachers can teach students within the community, that is community-based learning, the existence of digital learning, and the fact that there's so much fear that we could be seeing most of the private schools closing down come 2021 because they've not been able to stay afloat as of now.
I think it's been a wake-up call, and COVID has made the education sector have to step up. For example, at the university level and even at the high school and primary school level, by now in 2020, every school should have, developed a digital platform to be able to teach students. So for me, I think it's a wake-up call and a good wake-up call for us to be able to start moving digitally. I had a remark recently that, students should be taught under the trees. I don't think that's the direction we need to take. I think the direction we need to take is, as Kenyan people and the government should focus on, do we have electricity in each and every village? Are we able to actually bring technology to the villages so that kids are not just left sitting at home doing nothing, but whenever we have a situation like this where we have a pandemic, then learning is able to continue. And I think this is what a developed nation and a developing nation like ours should be focusing on, ensuring that learning never stops at any point, rather we move digitally. But also, I think even before we equip this, we need to train a lot of teachers, because as a university student leader, for example, you've seen even professors struggling at the university technology. So I think we really need to train our teachers on technology, pay them better, and ensure that this technology is actually reaching the grassroots.
Okay, well, we wait to see how successful that is going to be, even as we try to get the People Daily. But before that, there's a story here that has been captured on the Daily Nation, that is on page 12 of the Daily Nation, speaks of the tales of tourism and terrorism at the Lamu archipelago. I don't know how to, well, it's always tongue twisted to pronounce that one. I don't know how you pronounce it, but all the same, yes. I think on those times that we were trying to, traverse and visit these places, it was interesting to even try and pronounce that back then. But anyway, terrorism is creeping back, and you have seen or heard cases of terrorism and Al-Shabaab attacks creeping back. The hotspots, as always, we know very well, the borders of Kenya and Somalia, and even Lamu. What does it speak, even at this time when we're trying so hard to see to it that, we're able to revive our tourism sector as it stands? On the other page, of course, you've seen that the CS for Matters Tourism calling upon Kenyans to, embrace local tourism so we are able to revive the sector. So in this time and age when we're talking about, that flourish that needs to come back on Matters Tourism, what can we do to deal with this amid these reports of terrorism also?
I think one thing that I would actually like to commend the government for and the CS Balala is that we've seen him promoting a lot of local tourism with, for example, Masai Mara during this period, the migration period for the wildebeests, hitting 70% occupation and still rising. So I think it's for us as Kenyans to give confidence to tourists who actually come from abroad. There's terrorism everywhere in the world, from the United States to the UK, all face issues to do with terrorism. Probably even more than we do, but they just know how to deal with it better and more quietly. But I think if we promote local tourism, and us as Kenyans continue to promote the local tourism, then we give confidence even to outsiders that, Kenya is safe and it's not immune to terrorism. So come visit, enjoy a holiday, And there's a likelihood that you'll go back home safe and sound without even facing a terror attack.
Okay, well, that aside, we cross over to the People Daily, the front page of it. And banks record sharp drop in first half earnings because of bad loans. And yes, we struggle to stay afloat. While I ran away from that subject, I think we're back at 8. And this is a report that is heartbreaking. What way forward for the people? What way forward for the SMEs? What way forward for the people who've been running to banks to get loans? And how then do they get to stay afloat? I know that's a bit of a tongue twister because it's matter finances, but at least we can weigh in on the same.
I think what we need to do is, at the moment, banks need to be a little bit, well, let me start. It's an all-round, you need to look at it from an all-round perspective. We have landlords. Landlords need to be a bit more lenient. We have tenants. Tenants also need to be considerate of the fact that some of these landlords this is their actual daily bread. So I think we just need to look at it from an all-round approach. Banks need to be ready to lend money at better rates and with less conditions. I think we just need to have, for me, a national dialogue and agree how we're moving forward during this pandemic. How can we help as many business owners and small medium entrepreneurs to be able to stay afloat? I mean, if, for example, for me, as a young businessman, if the bank is good enough to me, then chances are I'll always stick with this bank. So I think we need to, as a nation, have a very candid dialogue about how to move forward. If these SMEs shut down and close down, then it's not beneficial to the country. So I think we all just need to be considerate and take an all-rounded approach, not making any on the victim or any on the victor.
All right. Well, and another story, of course, the biggest story, or amongst the biggest stories, Kagwe, how COVID millions were spent. That has been captured on the other newspapers. Senators arrested after night drama. That also has been captured on the other newspapers. But to a story here on page 2 of the People Daily, pro-life groups want Kihika bill completely withdrawn. Some 20 lobbies argue that the bill is pushing for illegalities not acceptable in the country's laws, and some 20 pro-life group yesterday called on the withdrawal of this bill, that is the Reproductive Health Care Bill, sponsored by Nakuru Senator Susan Kihika. Her proposal seeks to legalize abortion in a memorandum to the Senate Committee on Health. The group says that the bill is pushing for illegalities and practices that are not acceptable in the country. The group further stated that the bill as it is legalizes abortion on demand, which is contrary to the provision of the Constitution and the Penal Code. What do you make of this? Really, it's a conversation that has been ongoing for the longest of time. Legalize abortion or do not legalize abortion. What informs, for a person to make that decision to proceed and abort their baby? I mean, lots of controversy arising in regards to this, and sometimes they say that the doctor can be pushed to that point where this is the only thing that they can recommend to a patient, that abortion is the only thing that we can recommend, either to save you or save the baby, or either to save the situation that will be there at hand. Hence the reason why the senator has decided to proceed and fund this bill. So what do you make of it?
I think this is a very touchy subject, especially here in Africa, or maybe in Kenya, where we're Christian, perceived to be a Christian state. And it's simple because in the past, and for example, in a Christian or even in a Muslim or an Indian setting, children are supposed to come as a result of marriage, and then you have children. And that's why it would be a very hard sell here in Kenya and in Africa, simply because of our cultures even going back. But I think it's a very progressive approach by the senator, simply because we want to have a generation where we're not yet at the point where government can actually support each and every child. So it would be good that we have a situation where we have mothers having children by choice, and rather not by chance. This will enable us to have a healthy nation where everyone is able to be provided for, and then just have mothers who are actually ready to take care of their children.
Mm-hmm.
However, this is like I said, it's a very touchy subject, especially here in Africa. I'm not quite sure whether we are ready for it, because I know abortion still happens in hospitals, especially like you said, when it comes to saving the mother's life. So I think it's not yet a problem that even needs discussion in Kenya. I remember the same was mentioned by Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, responding to one of the questions when Obama was here, stating that, at the moment in Kenya, that's not a priority.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same.
All right, well, and speaking of which, matters COVID-19, the numbers have hit 30,365, as we discuss and expand some more later on the next segment. I'd love to hear your take in regards to the surge on the numbers, and even worse, I know this report that is here, Kiambu now overtakes Mombasa in infection rate. That then means it should be hitting number 2, then followed by Mombasa number 3. Nairobi is definitely number 1. What does it speak about, first of all, how much we are determined towards dealing with this, and the pattern of the discipline pattern, for Kenyans, or of Kenyans at this time, in ensuring that they uphold the measures that have been put on board by the Ministry of Health, and just how effective are the measures anyway?
I think it's very hard to contain this virus, especially with not having a lockdown, and with Nairobi rising, it's the cases in Nairobi rising, it was bound to happen that the neighboring countries, for example, Kiambu, would then have also a surge in the number of infections. But what I can say is, for as long as there is free movement for all, then we should see the cases rising. But also, for me, the number of rising cases is due to us as a nation doing more testing. So I think there's a lot more people out there who have these cases and are simply asymptomatic. But this for me is not too alarming. What I would want to hear though is, for example, our experts, how far are we with the virus? How far are we with getting a vaccine for the virus here in Kenya?
All right, well, we all cross fingers for that. Lifting Mutumba ban, a welcome boost. Resumption of trade in used clothes, popularly known as Mitumba, which is set to resume under strict protocols after the reopening of hotels, lodges and parks, is the latest indicator that Kenya is getting back to business. Like you said, it's harder to contain the virus if at all we are not on a total lockdown. Well, most of the people have argued that maybe it is not wise to be on a lockdown at this time, because then we'll be grappling to save the economy and equally save COVID-19, which is also not a good thing for us. And now that brings us to the cartoon edition of the People Daily. Thanks, buddy. It's good doing business with you. Make Kenya your home. This in regards to matters COVID-19. And there you go. COVID says, welcome. That's a positive comment. As if you can be able to see that keenly and Aloys, you realize that Wanjiko or the poor victims are seated somewhere down there. And it looks like, they are on the table, and the corruption or corrupt figures are out here, enjoying the meal, or, just they have turned the victims into the meal. So it's time to enjoy their money. Equally, make their lives even more of health. COVID-19 is equally enjoying, life with a big spoon, enjoying that with a fork, and clearly painting a picture of the corrupt activities again that we've seen. What do you make of the cartoon edition, even as we take a look at a different one from a different newspaper?
I think the cartoon is a simple explanation of COVID millionaires. Yeah. If I was to look at COVID millionaires, if I had a picture to paint a picture of COVID millionaires, that's exactly what a COVID millionaire would look like.
All right. Well, so, like you said, it's I think straight to the point. There you go, and it's the unfortunate event of the day, or issues that take center stage. And to the Daily Nation, the cartoon edition of the Daily Nation. When the government is done eating its own, guess who will be on the menu? And you can see this side, these sides, crocodiles and all that. So senators are in the mouth of the crocodile. So, and I think in what played out yesterday, we have seen that, yes, it sounded like, for once, the senators have decided to go against, their political leaders, which is something, people argue will come back to bite on them. I can't quite, try to figure out what exactly it is that this cartoon edition would mean, but I think that is not for me to figure out. I'll leave it to Aloys. Aloys, what do you make of the cartoon edition? Of course, you can see Team Tanga Tanga right there with their yellow attires, Kipchumba Murkomen, Johnson Sakaja is also joining there, and you can see all these leaders that are talking about the Senate and how unfortunate it is for the common mwananchi, because then he is always, or she is always on the losing end.
For me, what I take from the cartoon is that these senators are inside the mouths of their owners, and they're simply the mouthpieces of the crocodiles, who in this case are the political owners or political godfathers. But for me, I'm taking one positive thing out of this whole situation, in the sense that for once we have this so-called Team Kenya. They seem to be independent-minded and speaking for their constituents. Mm-hmm. So for me, it shows that it's actually possible in Kenya to have your own opinion and for you to be able to actually express that opinion. So if there's one thing I take from it, is that it gives hope to other young leaders who are very independent thinkers and have independent minds, like myself, to actually aspire to get into that leadership position, because a precedent has been set now that you can actually speak your mind in Kenya.
Uh-huh. Okay, and on that very note, Aloys Lavern, I think we have done our best in terms of reviewing on the newspaper. We won't be taking a look at the cartoon edition and the standard newspaper because time then would not allow us. It's important. We call it a day on that note. Looking forward to see you another time. And thank you so much for the great insights in regards to the stories that have been captured on the newspaper. We cross over to the different segment. Remember, it is COVID 362 today. Our main focus is on yesterday's grill on CS Mutahi Kagwe and what way forward as we deal with COVID-19, and even these sad reports that have come on board that most of our medics are now succumbing to COVID-19. This poses more danger to our people, as one would want to look at aid. So after this break, we're coming back with much more. Don't you go anywhere.